a.i.m is revolutionizing the used vehicle supply chain for car dealers by providing high-quality wholesale and retail-ready units. Alain, Matt, and Sam are bringing the data, insight, action, experience, and perspective tonight. So join the live chat, say hello, make new friends, and learn from the best on ATI Auto Business. What's up, ecosystem? Welcome back to ATI Auto Business Automotive Ecosystem, where everyone learns more about the automotive industry. Let's get started with top industry news and headlines that include AI deception and FTC lawsuits, inride, click-ins, and GM Envolve, Chinese imports and vehicle values. That all happens in about 10-15 minutes. At the 15-minute mark, we're going to bring in Alain Nana-Sinkam. He's the COO of a.i.m. Yes, the used car factory. This is the presentation you've been waiting for. And in his panel, we have Matt Jones and Sam Salzinger. And they're going to they know each other. They talk shop. When people ask me, who should I have in my panel, I always say bring people that you talk shop with, that you already know, and let us just stand in the hallways of the trade show with you and see what it is that you talk about and that you do so that we can learn. Please do click, share, and like, and copy, and grab that YouTube link. Tonight's show is, there we go, 346 in a row on a Tuesday night. This is Used Car Factory with COO Alain Nana-Sinkam of a.i.m. Now, Alain recently was at Auto Intel Summit. He gave a presentation. We're going to get an extension of that. He's got a lot to say, revolutionizing the supply chain of used vehicles. You know what Recon is, but you haven't heard Alain talk the way he talks about the marketplace. In fact, he's got a unique approach to comparing new and used markets. To give perspective, he likes to talk about retailing. He talks about consumer loyalty. So he thinks the way a dealer thinks. And by the way, he's going to make a connection to the disappearing photo from Back to the Future, so stick around for that. Matt Jones is in his panel. Matt is with TrueCar. That obviously is a really large resource for us to tap into tonight. If you have questions for Matt, he's with us. Sam Salzinger is here with Recurrent Auto. Recurrent buy electric cars positively. So we're going to be talking about EV. Yes, we're going to be doing that. Know your ecosystem, OEM dealer auction, logistics, remarketing, recon, compliance, and tech. Now, last Tuesday night, I had a repo body camera show. If you missed that, and Renee gave a presentation on human trafficking. Great information there. Last Thursday, we were talking about booking loads on Central. We're doing dispatching fundamentals on Thursdays right now. Already shared a couple shorts from that. There was a Montway Auto Transport launch short. There was a Super Dispatch Next Generation Marketplace short. Are you feeling left out? Let me know how I can help. ATI Auto Business, you know the drill. All right, let's do this. Here we go. ATI delivering auto ecosystem news every Tuesday night. It's 4 minutes after the hour. OpenAI just announced Chat GPT-4o, its new flagship model. With Chat GPT-4o, I'm telling you, go back to Chat GPT, because now you can engage with Chat GPT via any combination of text, audio, and image. I watched a little webinar on it this morning. The O in its name stands for Omni. Unified Multimodal Training allows GPT-4o to grasp nuance and context that gets lost when using separate models for each input-output type. The model also matches text and code capabilities. Okay, I could keep reading, but I'm telling you this. Check it out. Go try it again. I didn't even pay for the upgrade, and I don't know how much time I saved today alone with just doing some of the functionality that I was doing. Now, yes, I'm going to report on both sides. That's what I do. So, deceitful tactics by AI exposed. Meta's AI, a master of deception in strategy game. So, AI's increasing capability of deception poses serious risks ranging from short-term, such as fraud and election tampering, to long-term, such as losing control of AI systems. With engineers and developers working to make them as human as possible, unfortunately, they can also mean lying, just like a person. Really? Jay, that's so dark. AI platforms are reportedly learning to deceive us in ways that can have far-reaching consequences, just like people do. Cut it. TransUnion Report, Gen Z using credit more than millennial counterparts of their same age. Gen Z consumers are using bank cards and auto loans more than their millennial counterparts did at the same age 10 years prior. Credit cards, millennial 22 to 24-year-olds, 61% credit card use. Gen Z, 84%. Increasing balances reflect higher inflationary pressures on Gen Z, which is 22 to 24-year-olds. Got COVID, got higher inflation. Let's just do a recap of the generations. Okay, we had the silent generation, which nobody talks about because it's silent. Boomers, which got all the attention for quite a while. Then Generation X. I'm Generation X. Then we got Millennials, 1981 to 1996. And then Gen Z, 1997 to 2012, and I just looked it up. What's the new one? It's Generation Alpha. I guess if you were born after 2013. You're definitely not watching ATI, probably. But shout out to the one. And by the way, with AI and Gen Z and all the millennials, hey, why not boost your credit score 100 points? I've seen the ad. You've seen the ad. Remember, AI can do what humans can do. Okay. FTC announces rule banning non-competes. Now, I thought this was great news recently. FTC's final rule will generate over 8,500 new businesses each year, raise worker wages, lower healthcare costs, boost innovation, but guess what? Not so. The business groups sue FTC over ban of non-compete clauses. That's right. Just one day after the FTC Commission issued a final rule banning non-compete clauses, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and several local groups, that's right, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and several local groups filed suit against the FTC in Texas. On April 23rd, the FTC issued its ruling stating it will promote competition by banning non-compete nationwide, protecting the fundamental freedom of workers to change jobs, increasing innovation, and fostering new business formation. Well, you know what? Don't mess with us, because this ban, even though it will become effective in 120 days and will bar non-competes for future employees, and existing non-competes for senior execs can only be enforced for employees earning more than $151,000. Well, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce slams that decision. The FTC's decision to ban employer non-compete agreements across the economy is not only unlawful at this moment, but also a blatant power grab that will undermine American businesses' ability to remain competitors. That's right, let's squash the rebellion of Americans that are looking for freedom. In other news, Biden hits Chinese electric vehicles with a 100% tariff. Worried that China is prepared to flood the U.S. market with underpriced electric vehicles, the Biden administration early Tuesday announced it would hike protective tariffs on those cars to 100% in an attempt to stop them beginning this year. The hike on Chinese EVs from 25% to 100% is by far the largest and comes as Joe Biden, campaigning for re-election, moves to protect the U.S.-based automakers, including the Detroit Three, and their investments in EVs, in many cases sparked by federal funding and subsidies intended to spur EV technology and sales. China immediately vowed retaliation. Its Commerce Ministry said Beijing was opposed to the U.S. tariff hikes and would take measures to defend its interests. Great. Don't tell college campuses. President Biden on Wednesday signed a law that would ban Chinese-owned TikTok. Remember that? Oh, what's going to happen here? And by the way, Chinese vehicle exports above 1.3 million in the first quarter. Oh, great. Up 33% compared to the same quarter a year ago. Well, you know what? Let's stand up to those fat cats. Okay. There's an app that helps consumers auction cars to dealers. Through the power of technology and AI, InRide's new consumer-to-dealer app is changing the auto industry by offering customers the option to auction their cars to the highest bidding dealership and provide dealers with unprecedented access to quality pre-owned inventory. Created in partnership with software development company Blue Altair, vehicle owners can now opt to auction their vehicle with InRide's national network of dealers who will bid on their car risk-free. InRide handles everything from beginning to end, including transfers, transactions, and vehicle pickup to ensure a seamless, secure, and hassle-free process. Yeah, I hate to be Captain Obvious here, but have we heard of that somewhere? Click-ins brings its AI vehicle inspection technology to the U.S. market. The U.S. has a new entry in the budding sector of AI intelligence-driven vehicle inspections, launched in the U.S. headquarters in Kansas City, appointing Charles Lukens as the new CEO after 10 years as its new CEO. Okay, after 10 years of research and development in Israel. Oh, out of Israel. Wow, that's interesting because we've heard of several AI inspection out of Israel leaders. That's fascinating. Lukens comes to the company with more than 25 years of experience. Lukens said with Click-ins move into the U.S. market, we're set to redefine how vehicle inspections are conducted. And again, I just hate to be a killjoy. Let's move on. GM takes new approach, new name and fleet business. By creating a one-stop fleet unit catering to business customers, GM is seeing significant growth in sales of vehicles and accompanying services. So for those of you that say, Jay doesn't talk about OEMs much, a year ago, GM reorganized its fleet and commercial business, giving a new name and a simplified sales process. The creation of GM Envolve was not just new branding, a rethinking of how the automaker works with commercial customers, starting by giving them a single point of contact. There's your takeaway, a single point of contact at GM that can manage all their needs from vehicles to energy management, which is different from in the past when you talk to different folks based on your different needs. Very interesting. That is a serious account executive position. Of course, it requires a lot of training, but it can be very fruitful in the end. Through GM Envolve, business customers have a dedicated sales account executive who can work across divisions, including vehicle purchase, EV, charging equipment, service, parts, tailored products to your specific needs. I'd love to do a show with somebody who can do that. That's great. Collapsed Baltimore Bridge span comes down with a boom. Here's the update. Crews set off a chain of explosive. Crews set off a chain of carefully placed explosives May 13th to break down the largest remaining span of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. With a boom and a splash, the mangled steel truss came crashing down into the river below. It marked a major step in freeing the Dali, which has been stuck among the wreckage since it lost power and crashed. And wow, it's been stuck since March 26th. The crew members haven't been allowed to leave the grounded vessel since the disaster. Officials said they've been busy maintaining the ship and assisting investigators. What else? Jeez. Engineers spent weeks preparing to use explosives to break down the span, which was an estimated 500 feet long, 600 tons. That's a lot of bridge. Carvana looks back on the ADESA acquisition. That's right. What happened in the past 2 years? Carvana celebrates the 2-year anniversary of its acquisition of ADESA, delivering record post-acquisition volume and profitability at ADESA, driving a larger selection for wholesale auction buyers, developing and launching proprietary digital auction platform ADESA Clear, consolidating over 55 overlapping market facilities. And last week, as we know, they announced, billionaire earnings in stocks. Hyundai Kia models supplant pickups as nation's most stolen vehicles. You can't go anywhere without hearing stolen vehicles in automotive. In 2020, over 870,000 vehicle thefts. 2021, up to 930 plus. 2022, over 1 million. And now we're well over 1 million. Gee, I wonder what the correlation is. The most stolen vehicles in America are no longer trucks. 6 of the top 10 thefts in 2023, Hyundai and Kia, the Elantra, the Sonata, the Optima. Chevy Silverado 1500 full-size pickup, which had been number 1 in 2022, sadly fell to 4th. Kia Soul, Honda Accord, Honda Civic, Kia Forte, the F-150, and the Kia Sportage. More than 85% of passenger vehicles reported stolen were subsequently recovered by law enforcement and by other means. Okay, 85% recovered. That's good. And a third recovered within a day of the vehicle being reported stolen. Charles Lemon's car hauler posted on LinkedIn today, Kia boys strike again. Thanks for the video, Charles. And as we move into tonight's topic, wholesale used car prices dropped in April. 50% growth in late model vehicle sales at auction. Used car values down 14%. And Carvana says the price gap between used EVs and gas cars is narrowing. So many trends leading us into the used car factory. Do me a favor, stick around, because I don't ship cars. I move information. We're also the neutral zone. You may not like everything you hear, but you will hear it. We're not going to bury the news. Find out more about ATI Auto Business. Go to Contact Us. Let us know how we can help. Get the podcast and know your ecosystem. Do me a favor, stick around, because right after this, we're going to be joined by Alain, COO of a.i.m. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
The evolution of transportation. In the beginning of car shipping, there were stone tablets and woolly mammoths, very primitive vehicle delivery. Then, horse-powered haulers with mile-long paper BOLs causing enormous time hassle and massive stacks of paperwork for dealers, shippers, and carriers. What were we thinking? But now, with modern technology and cell phone mobile apps, simply click a button, order quick, reliable auto transport to pick up and deliver your cars safely and on time. It's instant car shipping at the best market rate. Start saving money today and get signed up. Visit oneauctionview.com.
Are you completely stressed out from all the calls and the contracts and the verifications of loads where nobody ever answers the phone? Call Murphy Auto Dispatch Services today. Murphy Auto Dispatch Services has over 15 years in the transport industry. We are your office while you are on the road. We book, we verify, and we bill out your loads for you. We have an excellent accounting staff and an even better dispatch team. Give us a call today at 417-273-0021, or if you want to email me, it's murphyautotransport31@yahoo.com. Give us a call today.
Need help shipping a car or keeping a carrier loaded? Murphy Auto Transport Services is a fully licensed broker and offers professional dispatch services. Visit murphyautotransportservices.com. All right, here we go. Please do help me wish a very warm welcome to featured guest Alain Nana-Sinkam. He is the COO of a.i.m. Alain, can you see me and hear me okay?
I can see you and I can hear you.
Great. I can see you. I can hear you. Please say hello. Tell us a little bit more. Just feel free to take it away.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I had such a great time on your show last month when we were doing the advanced preview of the Intel Summit. And I've been at a.i.m for almost a year out of North Carolina, but I've been in the car business my entire career. I started in a dealership way back when, Jay. I sold Geos, just to give you an idea of how far back I go in terms of my vintage. But spent a number of years on the lending side, worked in marketplace, also in residual values, got a lot of experience with manufacturers there. And then before a.i.m, spent 6 years, or 9 years rather, at TrueCar in the marketplace business. So I've been able to see the industry from a bunch of different vantage points, which has been really helpful. And the content that I want to share with your audience tonight You used the term ecosystem at the start of the show, and I think it's such an important term because everything that happens in this industry affects another part of this industry. So, as students of this business, we really need to understand it all because something could happen really far away from us that ends up having an impact on us. We've got to have that level of visibility.
Well, I appreciate that intro, and I know that, and I also thank you for those kind words. It's great to have you back. We did, full disclosure, we did a little prep session last week, and just the prep session, I mean, you had so much to say, so I don't want to hold you back. Feel free to share the screen, take it away, because I know you've got a presentation, and it's really good stuff. It's really informative.
All right, let's get going. How's that, Jay? Is that looking okay?
That looks really good.
Okay. What I want to talk about is basically what we've observed in our industry since 2020. And something interesting may have happened during that year that really had massive effect on not only our industry, but really all of the industries and our lives. And the way I want to do it is I'm going to share with you 5 things that I believe about the state of our industry, and I'm going to support them all with data. I'm going to give you some insights, what I think the data means, and most importantly, talk a little bit about the actions that we're seeing in our industry as a result of these things. Last month when I was on your show, I talked about this concept of the what, the so what, and the now what, and that's what I want to share with the audience. So, number 1, if you don't remember anything, if you don't take anything, I should say, from the last 4 years in our business, the number 1 story are the used cars that never happened. Millions of used cars that never happened. And what I mean by that is I can draw a parallel to Back to the Future. And when Marty McFly is walking around with the picture of him and his siblings, and he's seeing his siblings disappear because of stuff that didn't happen at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance and his parents didn't meet. We experienced a similar thing in our industry because of shutdowns of factories during the pandemic and other things. There were millions of used cars that never got a chance to be born. They never got a chance to enter the ecosystem. And now we're seeing the impacts of that. Here's a view of used new car production, rather, going back to 2014. And if you look at this gap underneath, starting in 2020, that's about 8.5 million cars that never got built because the factories shut down, you can see on the bottom, and production went literally to zero before it ramped back up, and we're still not back where we were. That's 8.5 million used cars that never happened because those cars never got built and they were never new cars to begin with. Another big impact is leasing. Now you're looking at lease penetration going back to 2019, and this drop in lease penetration because incentives went away and interest rates started creeping up. When you add up all of the space under the dotted line here, here's another 3 million cars. They exist, but they're not coming back into our ecosystem on the same cadence the way leased cars do. They're probably parked in driveways because their customers pay cash, or they finance them, or they paid for them in some other way, and they're not going to come back on schedule like they normally do in a leasing space. So what does this mean? It means we have 11.5 million used cars that don't exist in the secondary market. Tighter supply, higher prices, and consumers needing to accept slightly older inventory. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal this week that talked about consumers getting their heads around having to keep their cars a little bit longer. And as participants in the industry, we've had to widen our strike zone. We've got to look at older cars, cars with more miles on them in order to meet our inventory requirements, in order to meet our sales goals. I've been in this industry long enough to remember when 100,000 miles was the kiss of death for retail. And as a dealer, you didn't stock cars that had more than 100,000 miles. Open up any dealer's website and you will see countless vehicles over 100,000 miles. It's just a reality of our business now. Okay, number 2. The pricing power that dealers gained when supply went down has been completely erased by affordability concerns. This is one of the most impacting slides in the presentation that I shared. If you or anyone you loved was in the market for a new car in 2022, 82% of the cars that sold in that year, new cars, sold over MSRP. And if you were in the market, one or all of these three things happened. You had a hard time finding the car that you were looking for, the exact trim, color, equipment. You probably ended up buying something slightly different than what you were looking for, and you were probably completely incapable of negotiating with the dealer. Dealers held the cards. Pricing power was present in 2022. One of the impacts that had was this steady march up in average monthly payments that you're seeing here on the right-hand side, and reaching a peak of $738 a month average monthly loan payment in 2023. The story now is that consumers are completely tapped out. In 2019, 23 grand would get you a 3-year-old used car. In 2023, 24 grand gets you a 6-year-old used car. So there's this tremendous pressure on consumers to raise their sights, and they've reached their limit in terms of what they're willing to pay for. The now what here is that dealers are going to have to pivot and start cultivating loyalty, investing in service, because consumers are probably going to get another year and a half out of their car instead of being able to trade out, and certainly try to find more affordable options. Number 3, and you alluded to it, we're going to talk about EVs, especially with my buddies once they come in on the panel. EVs will continue to be a thing. What you're looking at here is a future product pipeline, according to Automotive News, of 171 vehicles coming in the next 5 years, all new cars. 138 of them are all electric. And to illustrate why this is so important, I'm going to tell you a quick story from when I worked at ALG, the residual values company. In 2017, I went to Used Car Week in Palm Springs, California, and the Nissan team was there. And they grabbed me and a couple of my ALG colleagues, and we went into a suite, and they pulled all the blinds, and they asked us to turn off our cell phones, and they showed us images of the all-new Nissan Pathfinder. Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because this all-new Pathfinder that they showed us in 2017 did not reach showrooms until 2022. That's how long the development cycle is. That's how much investment in design and ramping up equipment and ordering parts and working with companies like ALG to predict residual values and determine pricing. That's how long the development cycle is. So there are a number of cars that are coming of the EV variety where all of this work is already done, and those vehicles will be coming out. Most important stat here is the one on the left. 73% of EV buyers say they will only consider electric vehicles going forward. This is from a recent study from CDK. Once consumers get an experience with this technology, they tend to like it. That's a theme that I'm going to come back to in another section, but it is a really important consideration. Number 4, home stretch. Loyalty is dead, and it's been replaced with a new type of loyalty. What you're seeing here is brand loyalty, customers who return to the same brand from 2019 to 2023. That dip in loyalty is almost 700,000 new car sales where the consumer defected to another brand. So we're seeing this erosion of brand loyalty. What's it being replaced with? Feature loyalty and process loyalty. 24% of customers very likely to buy their next car online, and almost half of consumers consider CarPlay or Android Auto a must-have feature. So they are excluding vehicles from their list if they don't have this core technology. This is the new loyalty. Last one. People want car buying to be as easy as everything else that they do in their lives. During the pandemic, we were forced to do things virtually that we were accustomed to doing in person. We started making our shopping, our Target runs virtual. We would show up and they would put the stuff in the back of the car. All of the rise of the food ordering apps like Uber Eats and DoorDash and Grubhub, we started ordering takeout and having it brought to the house and doing it virtually. And then in the car business, This was the heyday of Carvana and Vroom and people buying cars virtually because at the beginning they had no choice. All of the showrooms were closed. But a funny thing happens. Once you start trying some of these technologies as consumers, you find out that you like them. Even though you can walk into any Target in the country now and do your Target run in person like you used to, there are consumers who continue to buy things virtually and they don't go in and buy them physically. Food apps are as popular as they ever have been. And like you said during your news segment, Carvana printed an amazing quarter and seems to be really picking up momentum again. I want to double click on the food one because I think it illustrates a really important point. What has happened with food apps in particular, and we're seeing this in other spaces, is consumers are starting to filter their choice based on the way they want to transact. And what I mean is, when you go to order out of a food app, you are intentionally filtering out all of the restaurants that aren't on the app because you've decided this is how I want to transact. And then I will choose from what's inside of this app. And if you're not there, then you don't get an opportunity for that consumer's consideration. We're going to see the same thing in our auto industry, where consumers are going to choose how they want to transact and then choose from the options that are available for them in that space. And I'll end with a view of the impact in our industry of that phenomenon that I'm talking about. Carvana and Vroom have, you shake a tree and 12 people fall out that have an opinion in our business of whether these guys are the angels or the devils or anything in between. But here's the inescapable thing that we all have to reckon with, no matter how you feel about online car buying. Over the past 3 years, almost 1.5 million people bought a used car without touching it first. That is a weighty, weighty thing that we have to reckon with in our industry to understand how our experience needs to evolve to accommodate that consumer, because that number has the potential to continue to grow and grow and grow. So I know I went through that quickly, Jay. Appreciate the podium to kind of share this with the audience. But here are the 5 things that I covered, and the disembodied hand is helping me make my point. The used cars that never happened, pricing power eroded by affordability, the rise and continued presence of electric vehicles, the new kind of loyalty, and consumers wanting the car experience, the automotive shopping and buying experience to be as easy as everything else that they now do in their lives.
Wow. That was an awesome presentation. And I see I saw you had sent a video. Do you want to play that? The 90-second, or is it?
Yeah, certainly. We can. We probably should do it after we.
Let's do that.
Talk with our
all right, after the break. Do me a favor, stick around. Right after this, we're going to bring in Matt and Sam. We're going to get the discussion going. Stick around. We'll be right back.
AuctionVCommerce is the universal support solution to help brick-and-mortar auctions respond to the needs of digital buyers and sellers with greater efficiency, accountability, and more access. AuctionVCommerce is a bridge between the dealers of the past and the auction of the future.
Transport Auto Quoter is by far the leading auto quoting software on the market, and the only auto quoter with a pro version that comes preset with accurate pricing for anywhere in the US, so you don't have to worry about it. The best part is that no change with your current software is needed. Just plug TAQ in and start booking jobs. Carriers can easily plug TAQ into their current websites and start making money right away. I bet you're wondering how we do this instantly and accurately 24/7. Well, constant analytics is the key. Our PriceWatch team is constantly monitoring current market conditions, paying close attention to seasonal and quick-moving industry changes. At the end of the day, it takes a lot of time and data to maintain good pricing, time that most of us just don't have on a daily basis. So free yourself up. Using TAQ Pro is really a no-brainer. Save time and money, maximizing your leads and optimizing your online investments. You'll finally be able to sleep well at night knowing that TAQ is on the job selling for you 24/7. Never missing a potential job.
Don't lose any more sleep worrying about missing leads. Get Transport Auto Quoter to quote the right price the first time, every time. Run your business with TAQ. Visit transportautoquoter.com. All right, do me a favor. Please help me wish a very warm welcome to Matt Jones and Sam Salzinger with Recurrent. Okay, Matt, you can see me, you can hear me. Matt, please say hello and tell us a little bit more about you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting me jump in this conversation. I've been sitting in the back watching this. This is going to be great. Love to, add my little opinions in. Like Alan, I've been in the car business since 1905, is what it seems like. Started selling cars about 24 years ago. Spent the first 12 years of my career selling cars in Southern California at some pretty big dealerships. In 2013 or so, I transitioned into this space that I'm in now, where I have this really awesome job where I get to see data about car buying behavior and car and consumer behavior, and I get to marry it with what the other side is doing. I get to see what consumers are doing, I get to see what dealers are doing, and I get to put those together in a cohesive story and share it with anybody who will give me 10 seconds to share it with them. So I probably have one of the best jobs on earth other than playing for the Dodgers. Just couldn't be happier, and I'm with TrueCar. This is my 6th year with TrueCar. And I'm like, I love this space. And like, as Alan said, and as we all feel like, this is just one of the best and most understated industries that there is. Happy to be a part of it and happy to contribute.
Thank you, Matt. And we got a chance to meet in, was it 2019?
It was 2019,
at
yes,
NADA?
at one of these conferences. And I love how you laid this up at this pre-conversation. It's like, let's just treat it like we're at a trade show. We're in a hallway having a great conversation about a specified topic. So thank you for putting this together and giving the platform to us.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time and joining us. Sam, please say hello and tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Been about a decade in the industry. I've been kind of a protege for Alan and Matt. Spent time at ALG and then TrueCar as well, and now I'm with Recurrent and doing some business development for them. And we focus on transparency and building confidence in the used EV space. And we've got about 20,000 active users and logging about 500,000 miles a week. And then I just want to say, to call back to Alan, I learned how to drive on a GeoPrism. So
circle of life. There you go.
That calls for a and two things too is you're recently with Recurrent and you all know each other, right?
Yeah.
So there's some facts. All right, so take it away. Alan just gave this amazing presentation.
I talked about this evolution out of the pandemic of consumer behavior, and this I introduced the concept of this new kind of loyalty. And Matt, I'm interested in your thoughts on that. What are you seeing in your world around how consumers have changed their order of priority and how they shop for cars?
Yeah, it used to be brand loyalty. I think we can all agree with that. Actually, probably all of us on this call have felt that in some shape or form in our own life. But as we've seen with, inventory drying up and people wanting specific features, which you have alluded to, we've seen people just jump ship. We see them starting to shop on one particular brand and then go to a different type of brand. And I think, and don't quote me, I don't know if I have the number right on this, but it's only about a third of shoppers stick with one brand now. The other 70% or so are looking at least two brands, which seems reasonable, but half of shoppers are looking at 3 brands or more. So I think that we can say that the loyalty part, while still there in theory for some, people who have very specialized needs, if you need to tow 15,000 pounds, you need a particular torque ratio, sure, that probably is still going to stay the same. But if you're just average everyday folk driving the 405 or driving the 680 or whatever you're driving, and you need a need for your transportation to be met, that loyalty is eroding. We're also seeing that something that you had alluded to, Alan, I think it's important to have in the conversation is the loyalty to how people actually pay for their vehicles is also malleable. as we saw during during COVID, we saw the lease penetration dip, and now we're seeing lease penetration start to creep back up again. So all of these different things talk about this idea of this set in stone, this Excalibur sword locked in a stone loyalty. It's just not there anymore. Not on how they purchase, not on what they purchase, and not through the delivery method in which they purchase. None of these things, all of these things are up for grabs at this point.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in my career working on the finance end of this, and there has always been a group of consumers that start with what I call the 3-digit number, and that's their filter. They come on the lot, Matt. I know you've experienced this. What do you got for $300 a month?
100%. Yep.
And that's their starting point. They still have preferences, and they'll choose from what's inside of their budget, but they start with this gating item, which I think has really just been it's been accelerated because now the tools to answer those questions are much stronger than they used to be. You tried to deflect that question to the finance manager or to the end of the process. Now you're answering that question right up front anytime a consumer comes into the store or onto your site.
And as we think about that a little bit more, I think it's, you talk about that 3-digit customer. I think that we're in a space to say that I think it's safe to say now, without worrying about being ostracized, but a lot of America are those 3-digit shoppers now, and we can say it without feeling like bad guys. It's always been, talk to your customer about the total price of the loan or the total price of the purchase and so forth. Those are just the things we've been hearing, from an advice standpoint for the past 2 decades or so. But I think, to your point, Alan, those people have always existed, and I think now that we can talk about them and not feel like, it's nothing predatory. It's just saying this is people's drivers right now. It's that 3-digit number. That's their 3-digit shoppers.
Oh man, and I mean, the way I learned to sell cars, you didn't talk about payments until the end.
Right.
The rule in my store was if you quote payments out on the floor, you might as well ask the customer for a ride home because you're fired. That was basically the experience, and now I think it's just a much different situation.
Agreed, 100%.
Speaking of payments, one of the biggest developments in our industry is how low monthly payments are on electric vehicles. They are the vehicles that you point a consumer to if they come in on a payment. And Sam, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what you're doing at Recurrent and how you guys are seeing this shift in thinking around the electric space.
Yeah, I mean, especially on the new side, like you mentioned, those payments, pushing the metal has an impact on the used market. So I think for the first time, we're now seeing, as of this year, you could get a Tesla Model 3 for less than the average ICE vehicle on the used space. So it's a lot of car for the money. And with the new incentives out there, it prevents a really attractive option for buyers looking for affordability. And that's a good way to enter the space. So it's kind of a new wave of adoption for EVs. And, we're excited working with dealers. Our dealers are happy. We work with some marketplaces with Edmunds and Cars. They're listing our badges and, really just showing people that the cars don't change a whole lot in 3 years. The battery isn't having this huge impact. It's not quite like our cell phone. There's a lot better technology there for it. And I think those factors all weigh in.
I want to talk about battery health a little bit because I've taken the opinion that mileage, I should say, just matters less and less on an electric car. I remember being able to open up the door of a used car and look at the odometer and formulate an opinion of that car based on the number that I saw. At our factory in North Carolina, we bring in a lot of EVs. I'll open up the door and I'll look at the odometer and then I'll think to myself, I don't even know what that means on an electric car. What are you talked about badges, Sam? What are you guys doing with that part of the equation?
Yeah, so we're putting out some expected range scores on used EVs. So, like I said earlier, we've got about 20,000 drivers that actively are plugged in connected vehicles, and we've got a team of PhDs and battery scientists that are much smarter than I am, putting together a model that can output these figures. And really, it's just ultimately providing comfort. There's the unknown, like you said. We don't know. We look at the mileage, it might be different for an EV that has 50,000 miles or 100,000, but the battery could be the same. And we're tracking that for most models today.
So Matt, you and I have a history at NADA of some pretty epic conversations. And I'm going to take you back to one that we had a year ago with some good friends of ours. I think you're at their conference right now.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm hanging out at the AuctionVCommerce conference in Baltimore right now.
Nice.
I'm in my hotel room, and at the conclusion of this, I'm going to go down and mingle.
Beautiful. So we were hanging out with those guys at NADA 2 years ago, and we started talking about the notion that at any given time, we believe what we believe. We have these articles of faith that we think are super true. Jay mentioned a stat at the beginning of the show about how Gen Z is using credit more than millennials. And Jay, as an industry, we were all sitting there wondering whether millennials and Gen Z were even going to buy cars. We thought they were all just going to be riding around in Ubers and now we're seeing things that we were worried about years ago turning out differently. So where I'm going with all of this is try to talk to your future self and tell me about an article of faith that you're holding right now that you think might change in 12 months, or something that we collectively believe that has the potential to change in the next year.
Okay. Can I influence that decision on what I'd like to see change?
Sure.
Okay. So a lot of us in the industry, we are looking for, there's a belief that by building better tools, adopting greater technology, we will find ways to sell more cars. I think that's something that we all believe in. For those of us who started selling cars in antiquity, when the internet came out, which is a form of technology, we thought that this was going to help us sell more cars. Apps were going to help us sell more cars. I think that we have all believed that, right? But Alan, although you didn't touch on it exactly, when you brought up one of the charts about like vehicle production and vehicle sales and missing vehicles, I couldn't stop thinking about the plateau that our industry seems to be at when it comes to overall sales. So generally, in a non-COVID year, in a non-recession year, we sell about 15 million cars. That's just what it's been. That's just what it is. We sell 15 million new cars, right? We sell about 15 million CPO at franchise dealerships. We sell about 15 million at independents, and about another 15 million peer-to-peer or private party, we should call it, right? So the belief is that we can create new tools and new stuff to create more sales. But the data says, that's that same 15, right? It's the same 15. So all I'm doing is I'm creating a better way to take your customer from you and bring them to me, right? What I would like to see change, and I think that we are actually on the cusp of it, particularly with something that Sam said, is what I would like to see change is I would like to see people come into the market who are not in the market. I don't want to take your customer. I don't want to take your customer because then it's the same customer. They're just a different place. But as EVs become more accessible, and there's word on the street that maintenance is a little bit less, there's word on the street that the cost of fuel is a little bit less, it would seem that those things would bring down the overall cost of transportation, which might pull people who are not in the market because of affordability and then bring them into the market. So what we hold on to is new stuff will bring new customers. What I'd like to see change is actually let's revisit what a new customer actually is. It's that person who's sitting on the sideline who hasn't given any money to a dealership in 15 years. That's the person that I want to see brought into the market. And I think that we can do that with this kind of conversation. So it's not exactly what you said, Alan, but that's what we hold true. And that's what I'd like to see change. I'd like to see some emphasis on reaching out to those folks who aren't even in the game and bring them in the game. I think that's where the absolute real growth is.
Yeah, look, I think it's a glacier that we have to move as an industry. We're coming off a year where the average fleet age increased. The amount of scrappage that we saw was the lowest that we'd seen in a considerable amount of time. And so we're moving in the opposite direction, but I think you're absolutely right. We got to push in that direction. All right, I brought up a really interesting question when we were kind of talking about what we were gonna cover on this. And Sam, I want to start with you. We've gone through fuel changes before. We transitioned from unleaded gas to leaded gasoline. We've introduced new fuel types like diesel. Do you think that electric vehicles are going to be more like diesel? And I'm not talking about the Dieselgate stuff or any of that controversy, but are they going to be more like diesel? Or is there just going to be one of many different fuel sources that you can choose from? Or is it going to be this massive change that we were anticipating it was going to be, where it completely replaces the last fuel source? And just to be clear, that took 26 years to happen. The last time we changed a fuel source, it did not happen overnight. Which one feels more like it to you?
I think it's kind of a hybrid. I think there's kind of this interim where we start to see adoption. And I mean, you see it in the data. We see, sorry, my dog, of course, wants to eat a bone right now. I think we see it kind of transition where people get into it. They start adopting those cars. Then they never go back. That just keeps happening over and over again. Eventually we come to totality. But I still think part of my brain, where I grew up in Nebraska, there's just, there's parts of the country that, they'll never get rid of their diesel truck, it'll run forever. So that's kind of a two-sided answer, but I think there's a path that we can get there.
Is that like you not getting rid of your mid-90s German sedans that have questionable repair histories?
Yeah, it's all part of the fun. I guess that's the illness of being in this industry for a long time.
Oh man, yeah,
gotta have a hobby.
Absolutely.
Hey, can I jump in that question?
Yeah.
I think one of the more overlooked, but probably a very interesting element about the EV conversation isn't actually like the propulsion system itself. I think when we talk about EVs, I think for a lot of people, an EV represents like modernness, newness, whatever it is. And that modernness and newness, I think, spills over into behaviors that aren't necessarily, EV related, And we mentioned Carvana and Vroom earlier, right? I guess the question would be about Carvana and Vroom is, would that adoption of that 1.3 million people who bought cars that had never seen them, would it have been so prevalent if it wasn't people saying, hey, there's those Tesla folks over there buying cars that they've never seen, and apparently it works, right? It's like there's this EV thing that's coming into our industry, that it's a behavioral model. There's a consumer shift that I think that it just happens to be on EV. It could have been on fuel cell. It could have been on, sunlight cars. It could have been on whatever, right? It just happens to be on EV. And so when I think about like the transition, I think like, what are the ramifications as far as transactions? What is the ramifications about familiarity with the vehicle and demos and things like that? I think those are going to be some very interesting conversations, because I'm not knocking Tesla here. I'm not knocking Tesla, right? But when Tesla was first getting its foothold, we know that they had some initial quality issues, right? We just, I'm not saying in a negative way. It's just what it was, right?
Like any manufacturer.
It's just what it was, right? People were still gobbling them up, right? Even knowing the door panels may not line up or the interior may not be perfect, people were still gobbling up, because that EV was ushering in a new way of transacting, right?
In a world where 76% of people say they would rather go to the dentist or settle the estate of a loved one who had past than go through the existing road to the sale that can be really arduous. This was a new thing, and the other thing that I heard you going toward that I wanted to touch on was the lack of build complexity in those cars, which could have been any car. It could have been gas or any of those other propulsion systems. In this particular space with that particular brand, it's what color do you want, how big do you want the wheels to be, and how fast do you want to go.
Right.
That's essentially all you need to choose.
Yeah.
Everything else, and even some of those things, can be changed in software. They can change the range, they can change how fast it goes. All of those things can be changed. So it lets them build the cars very consistently, and it makes it really simple for the consumers to choose.
Simple, right? Simple. So I think simplicity is going to be it's going to have a larger impact on the space in the coming years than I think that we're giving it credit for, right? Because we can build out vehicles with 150 options, right? But we're seeing that some people aren't as interested in building out 150 different options. You know, we're seeing people. We talked about the president, signing something into law to ban TikTok. What is TikTok videos? What are those recorded with? Simple little phone. It's not a 70 millimeter Tarantino camera. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we look closely, we'll see that simplicity is starting to permeate our world. And if we can ingest that, there might be some wins. There is one last thing I got to say before I get off my soapbox. Okay. About the 76% of people who would rather settle in a state, right? I have always held that people don't have a problem with car shopping, and it'll really take some substantial evidence to make me feel differently. They have a problem with car transacting. As a person who sold cars for 1 million years, I can't recall a single demo drive where I had a customer say, "I hate this, hate test driving cars. I hate looking at colors and moving new seats. Can't stand it." Never happened. Never happened. They do say, "Oh, is this the part where you bring over the hammer or whatever you call them? I hate that." They hate transacting. They don't hate buying, right? They don't hate the process. They just hate the paperwork part. And so again, if we think about that simplicity arc, we got some opportunities in this business to really do some interesting things over the next couple years. If we just look at the world, you know what I mean? If we just look at the world.
We were driving to get the applause track from Jay, and I think you just nailed it. I really did.
Not only are you right, I was so engrossed I forgot to hit the applause button. But I love that. And you know what I was thinking? I was thinking, I love it also when people bring out a soapbox. That's all I stand on. So it's nice to have somebody join me on the soapbox. Thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for giving us the space to do it.
So we spent a lot of time, Jay, talking about the business and not so much what we're working on down in Oxford. And I was hoping maybe you could close with that clip that I shared with you for the audience so that they can get a better flavor for what we're working on, what we're building down there.
Let's do it. I'm going to access my, you sent me an email earlier, but not a problem. Link to the PDF, and in it now, let's see, before the PDF was the link to the video. I'm narrating because I'm working to get there, but I think we're there. So let's just, if Google is trying to play a video and move a window, and it is taxing. Oh, here we go. I think we're almost there. And I was thinking what you said, Matt, about the transaction too, the hammer. And yeah, people were still, it's being sold, right? Don't we all hate to be sold? Man, nobody has time for that now.
We hate to be sold, but we love to buy.
And sound.
What if I told you We were about to do something big. What if I told you? We were about to make the used car ecosystem work for everyone. Look around. You're standing in our Oxford, North Carolina reconditioning center, the first of many. This is where we're starting, not where we're ending. Imagine centers like this all over the country, supplying used vehicles to any dealers who are looking for consistent and reliable inventory, regardless of their size. Our aim is to be the largest producer and trader of wholesale and retail-ready automobiles for everyone. So what is it that we do here? Well, anything. We have dozens of lifts with mechanics working around the clock to provide safe and quality vehicles. We have a fully stocked detail bay, inventory storage, parts department, and even our own state-of-the-art people. So what do we ask of you as a dealer? To partner with us. Join us online at a.m Recon.com or visit us in Oxford, just north of Durham, any weekday to buy and sell vehicles at an affordable price, consistent availability, all with the assurance of 14-day issuance. If you're looking for a place to find wholesale and retail-ready cars whenever you need them, look no further. Welcome to a.m.
The used car factory. Nice job, Alan. So we just saw the video. So it's in North Carolina, your facility. You are you're working with dealers nationwide?
We're growing in that direction. We're working regionally, or call it super regionally right now. We converted an organic tobacco factory into a fully functioning reconditioning facility with lifts and paint booths and detail bays and transport, all coming in and out of that facility. Acquisition, recon, and then distribution. We'll continue to grow geographically. The first one is always the hardest. Number 2 and number 3 will certainly be easier, but it's really exciting work, and it's not new, right? The big guys have it, but they have it for themselves. Carvana has what we've built for themselves. CarMax has what we've built for themselves. Nobody's done it for the broader community of dealers, for any dealership that needs access to inventory. So it's a space that we're really excited to occupy, and looking forward to partnering more fully.
Fascinating segue, because I said something somewhat controversial in the beginning when I was talking about inride and click-ins and a little bit of Captain Obvious inside humor. Why would we see something that we feel like we've already seen? And I think the answer is there must be either an accessibility issue or a price issue, and there's still room in the marketplace for yet another entrant into what's something that we feel like we've already seen. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think that it's a concept that works, and there's a segment of the market that would never have the infrastructure to be able to do it on this scale with this type of velocity. So if they can tap into it, the piece that they need, without having to build the whole ecosystem, there's that term again, then it becomes really advantageous. Think about something as simple as this. If you're an independent used car dealer, you buy a car at the sale, you bring it back. How many days does it spend in recon before you can present it on your front line and put it up on your website? All that time, you have money invested in that car, you have floor plan invested in that car, and the clock is ticking and that cost is accumulating. Imagine the ability to source a vehicle that the day that it arrives at your dealership, it's ready to be wiped down and put on the front line. Just the increase in velocity there can be really significant for that type of partner who maybe has never had access to something like that before.
I'm also going to add that we had our prep meeting. I think it was on Friday we briefly talked, and then I think it was on Saturday I was in Perry, Oklahoma. Okay, nobody can point out Perry, Oklahoma on a map. It's very small, it's a very town city off of I-35 in Oklahoma, but a lot of people pass it all the time. And guess what I saw that I never noticed before was a new set of Tesla EV chargers, probably 6 in a row. And I thought, how many places this is happening right now across the country and we're not noticing? We're going to hit that point where there's enough chargers, you just didn't know about them. What is that?
Well, look, I mean, refueling is all about ubiquity in terms of location and speed. The reason that there's not range anxiety for gas cars is because there's a gas station on every corner and you're in and out in 10 minutes. That's why there's not range anxiety. When we approach that point in electric where you have ubiquity and sufficient speed, that concern will go away.
And I have always been blown away by the desire for Tesla, regardless of any errors or anything. People love Tesla. Great job, Tesla. I don't know how you did that. Right? I want to know the secret. Apply it to ATI. I'll have fans coming out of my ears.
Yeah, look, I'll say one thing about it. They failed in relative anonymity. They built their charging infrastructure. They built their cars. They did all of that stuff when nobody was really paying attention. It was just that goofy $100,000 car that, early adopters were driving. That's when they had their issues building their network, the build quality stuff that Matt was talking about. When they got to prime time, they had figured a lot of that out. And now the others are encountering those things as they ramp up, and the other charging networks and other OEMs that are getting into it now are going through the growing pains that they had already gone through.
Now the boring company's not so boring, is it? Okay. All right. I want to thank Alan, Matt, Sam. Thank you for taking the time. Matt, you can now go party. It's a party, right?
I think so. I think so.
Big time party. That's at ASOTU. What am I talking about? Matt, pitch it. What is it?
ASOTU, for those who don't know, ASOTU is an acronym. It stands for Automotive State of the Union. And this is their annual conference. This is their third one. It's here in Baltimore. And it's actually, while the ASOTU conference goes on, which is a trade show, there's also the Maryland Auto Dealer Association annual meetup is also going to be happening here at the same time, along with there's another group called WOCAN, Women of Color Automotive Network, and they're having a breakfast here too. So we've got this conference, and you've got a whole bunch of people from disparate parts of automotive that are going to be here: dealership owners, vendors, big thinkers, and I think there's even a clinical psychologist here who helped one of the founders figure out how to maintain a healthy and happy work-life balance so that he could go kick butt in automotive and still be the person that his family needed at the same time. And if I understand it correctly, that person's also going to be getting 30 or 45 minutes on stage to help some of these old school car dogs who have a problem balancing on their own. So there's professional growth, 88% of it. The other, 10% is going to be like, networking, and then there's 2% personal growth. So it's going to be a thing. I'll report back.
Wow. That's really neat. You just told me something I didn't know that. And it's collaborative with those other conferences in a sense, and that's really cool. This is all happening in Baltimore right now. ASOTU, did it start today?
Today's registration, but it actually officially starts tomorrow, and it goes through Friday.
Awesome. So this is the pre-party.
Yes.
So, okay, well, take
just to be clear, I might look like a young man, but I'm 1,000 years old. I have no desire to be at a party. My clock says that it's 9:09. I just want to wrap up and watch Golden Girls. I'm not going downstairs to go party. Absolutely not. No.
Man, I have bad news for you. I know you're on West Coast time.
No, I'm in Baltimore right now.
I know you're still on West Coast time mentally.
Oh gosh, what?
Don't sell yourself short.
Okay, maybe I will go down and party for just a little bit, Sam, but it'll just be between you and I. Don't tell nobody.
I think it depends on what music they're playing, Matt.
It's a ASOTU. It's going to be fun music. It's going to be good. It's going to land. Yeah.
They bust a little Montel Jordan. It's going to be hard to peel you off the dance floor.
That's 1,000%.
That's my prediction.
Nice. Well, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. And guys, really, I appreciate your time, your input. What I'm looking forward to is I'm going to go back and I'm going to add time codes in the description of the show. Probably crank out a couple shorts in the next week or two. And then, yeah, hopefully there's a to be continued here. So, again, Alan, Matt, Sam, thank you so much.
You're awesome. Thank you for putting this together.
Thanks, Jay. This is great.
This
Appreciate
is
it.
fun.
Sam,
Right on.
we're watching you.
Okay, I'm watching you too. Let me know. Keep me posted. Send me an email. Take care, guys. Thank you.
See ya.
Later.
Okay, and that's a cut. Oh, we got the video playing again? Okay, cool. It is hard to end a show. It's hard to say goodbye, but that's what we have to do. It is now 8:10 p.m. We're an hour and 10 in. I kept you long enough. Chris, thank you for comments in the live chat. 925. And Alan, of course, for being a gracious host and presenter. So, what's going on with ATI, right? We're like, gosh, I started it in 2017, show 346. And what I really like to do, and I say this to folks more and more, is I like to see other people take the wheel for a minute. I got to say enough in the intro and the news, which, by the way, it's kind of it's like crazy automotive news with a little bit of Jay's, crazy spice in there. But when dude, I know this. I know it about, I know it's not popular, but I know that the things that we read, see, and experience, we bring all these years of opinion and sure, not sure, maybe not, whether it's the election coming up or whatever it is, we're not reading news on its face. And it's not being presented on its face. So the chance of actually getting through news in an unbiased fashion is nearly impossible, especially if you watch ATI. I want to thank One Auction View, Murphy Auto Transport, AuctionVCommerce, and Superflow Systems. Thanks again, Alan at a.i.m Recon, Matt Jones, TrueCar, Sam at Recurrent. Great having you guys on, and it's fun to add the EV conversation with. Did you hear that? 11.5 million cars missing in the past few years basically because of COVID. So there you go. And then the things that ensued after it. Interest rates keep rising. Delinquencies keep rising. Hang on. Hold on tight. We've got more crazy stuff coming up. The news is going to stay crazy for a while. My name is Jay. If you need to let me know something, send me an email. Go to atiautobusiness.com. Click Contact Us. Send me a message. Join Dispatching Fundamentals on Thursdays. If you want to talk logistics, forget about it. Have a good one. Thank you so much.